Level 1. The smell, mildew, and old cardboard. The specific staleness of air that hasn't moved in years. You're wearing work gloves because the unit was listed as a contents auction. $300, everything inside, no inspection, no returns. You drove 2 hours for this. You were hoping for furniture, maybe tools. Something you could flip on Facebook Marketplace for enough to cover the gas. The padlock snaps. The door rolls up with a sound like a held breath finally releasing. And there it is. Not furniture, not tools. 14 duffel bags stacked against the back wall with the careful geometry of someone who intended to return and never did. Military green canvas. The kind of bags that don't announce themselves. The kind of bags that are chosen specifically because they don't announce themselves. You open the first one with your hands still shaking inside the work gloves. Banded, hundreds, stacked the way cash is stacked when someone counted it more than once. You open the second bag. Same. The third. You sit down on the concrete floor of that storage unit in a town you've never been to before, and you stay there for a long time. The afternoon sun is cutting through the gap in the door. Somewhere outside, a truck reverses. A bird calls once and goes quiet. You are holding more money than you have ever seen, more money than you were ever supposed to see, and your hands will not stop shaking. You count it over 4 hours. You count it again. $10,200,000. You close the door. You drive home. You don't tell anyone. Not yet. Here's what nobody tells you about the moment everything changes. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like standing at the edge of something with no railing, looking down, trying to decide if what you're feeling is fear or something older than fear. Level 2. The silence. You don't sleep. Not properly. You lie in the same bed you've slept in for 6 years, in the same apartment with the same water stain on the ceiling, and you understand for the first time that the ceiling is the last ordinary thing you will ever see if you choose what you are already choosing. Because you have already decided. That happened in the car on the way home. You didn't negotiate with yourself. You didn't rehearse the ethical argument. You just drove, and somewhere on the highway the decision settled into your chest like ballast, and you knew. You are keeping it. 3 days pass. You eat normally. You go to work. You laugh at something your coworker Marcus says about the coffee machine, and the laugh comes out sounding exactly like your regular laugh, and that surprises you. You thought it would sound different. You thought something in your voice would have already changed. Nothing has changed yet. That's the last time that will be true. The shift. The money doesn't change you the moment you find it. It changes you the moment you start moving it. Level 3. The mechanics. You spend 6 weeks reading. Not self-help. Not motivation. You read about asset structuring, LLC formation, tax law, real estate acquisition, private banking. You read the way you've never read anything before. With urgency. With the specific focus of someone who understands that ignorance right now is not a personality trait. It's a liability. You open a business. Nothing glamorous. A holding company with a name that tells nobody anything. The kind of name that sounds like a consulting firm or a logistics outfit or nothing at all. You find an attorney whose fees alone would have made you flinch 6 months ago. You pay them without flinching. You find an accountant. You pay her the same way. The first $400,000 moves into a commercial real estate acquisition, a small strip of retail units in a market 3 states away. You've never been there. You don't need to be. The numbers are what you went to visit. You still drive the same car. You still live in the same apartment. Nobody knows. This is the part that surprises people when they imagine it from the outside. They imagine the money changes everything immediately. The clothes, the address, the face you show the world. But the first thing the money teaches you, if you're paying attention, is patience. The money is only powerful if it moves correctly. Moved wrong, $10 million becomes $2 million faster than you can model the scenario. So you don't move wrong. You move slowly. You move with people who know things you don't. You stay quiet, and you learn, and you let the machine begin to assemble itself in the background while your coworker Marcus still complains about the coffee. Level 4. The first change. Month 8. You sign the lease on the apartment the day before your birthday. 41st floor. Floor-to-ceiling glass on 2 sides. The city at night looks like something that was built for exactly this view, as though the architects of every building in the skyline were conspiring toward this specific window. The monthly cost is $7,400. You pay it without a calculation. For the first time in your adult life, you pay something without a calculation. That lands differently than you expected. It's not the apartment that moves you. It's the absence of the arithmetic. The silence where the mental math used to run. You stand at that window the first night with a glass of something that cost more than your old weekly grocery run, and you realize you've been carrying a noise inside you for so long you stopped hearing it. The low, constant hum of not enough, the background static of every spending decision for the last 15 years. It's gone. Not forever. Not completely. But gone enough that the quiet is physical. This is what the first real change feels like. A Tuesday night standing at a window in the dark, feeling for the first time like the floor beneath you is solid. Level 5. The luxury isn't what you thought it was. You buy the watch 6 weeks later, not because you needed it, because you wanted to know what it felt like to want something and simply go get it without a conversation with yourself about whether you deserved it. The answer is, it feels good for approximately 4 days. Then it's just a watch. You understand something then. The things you buy to signal arrival, the watch, the car you finally do upgrade, the suits that are made specifically for your body by a man in a quiet room with very good lighting, they are not the luxury. They are the visible layer of it, the surface. The actual luxury is underneath. The actual luxury is the phone call you take at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday from a rooftop, while the people you used to sit next to in an office are sitting in the same chairs, at the same desks, running the same calculations. The actual luxury is the meeting you decline because the ROI doesn't justify your time and nobody can make you attend it. The actual luxury is flying somewhere without checking the price of the ticket, not because you don't care about money now, but because you care about it differently. You think in returns and positions and allocation, not in can I afford this. You book a villa in the south of France for 3 weeks, not a hotel. A villa. With a staff of 2 and a kitchen that opens to a garden, and the kind of quiet that costs more than most people's annual income. You sit in that garden on the 4th morning with coffee, and you feel something you have no clean word for. Not happiness exactly. Bigger than happiness. Stiller. The feeling of a life that finally has room in it. Room to think, room to breathe, room to become whatever version of yourself exists on the other side of not being afraid. Level 6. The Empire. You are 34 now, 18 months from the storage unit. The holding company owns 4 commercial properties. A business you acquired at a distressed valuation is generating $340,000 a year in revenue after a restructure you guided personally. Your brokerage account holds $1.8 million in indexed positions. You have a private equity co-investment in a logistics startup that 3 separate analysts have described as pre-exit and undervalued. You employ 7 people, not as an ego metric, because the machine required them and you found the right ones. Your net worth, across everything, conservatively modeled, is $14 million. You started with $10.2 million in green duffel bags on a concrete floor. In 18 months, the money did not sit still. It moved. It found other money. It built structures that generate returns while you sleep, while you sit in French gardens, while you decline meetings that don't deserve your calendar. Here is the 3rd rule. Money that moves correctly doesn't deplete, it recruits. You think about the version of yourself 2 years ago. Work gloves, 2-hour drive, hoping for furniture, and you feel something that isn't quite pride and isn't quite grief. Something in between, the emotion of having crossed a distance so large you can no longer see where you started from. Level 7. The truth. You are at a dinner. The table costs $800 per person, and everyone at it knows this, and nobody says it. These are people who operate at a certain altitude, people whose decisions move capital across time zones, whose names are on buildings and funds and foundations, and none of it announced loudly. You are at this table not as a guest, as a peer. You are 34 years old. 6 months ago, you were explaining to your landlord why the rent check was 3 days late. You pick up the glass. You listen to the conversation. And somewhere underneath the composed surface of who you've become, there is a version of you still sitting on that concrete floor in work gloves with shaking hands, surrounded by 14 green duffel bags and an afternoon that split your life cleanly into before and after. That the money was never the destination. The money was the tool. What you built with it. The discipline, the structure, the relationships, the decisions made correctly under pressure, the identity you had to construct from scratch because the old one didn't have the architecture to hold what you were becoming. That is the thing. Here's what nobody tells you about finding $10 million. The money solves the problems you can name. It does not solve the problems you haven't found the language for yet. It removes every external excuse and leaves you alone with the quality of your own thinking. And your thinking, it turns out, is the only thing that was ever going to determine what happened next. The floor of that storage unit was cold. The concrete was cracked in one corner. The bag smelled like old canvas and something metallic underneath. And when you rolled that door up and saw what was inside, the life you were living ended and a new one began, not because of the money, but because of what you chose to do with the silence after. You chose to build. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next.